Welcome to Watch-Worthy Shows. Hulu arrives in 2026 with one of the strongest catalogs in its history. Comedies returning after decades away, thrillers that won't let you sleep, dramas already stacking up awards before their next season even drops, and the definitive finale of one of the most celebrated series in recent television. Today we're counting down the 15 most important Hulu series of 2026 from what you can already watch right now to what's coming to close out the year with everything it's got. But before we start the video, it would mean a lot to me if you took a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. Number 15, Spring Fever. Some series arrive at exactly the right moment, and Spring Fever is precisely that. This Hulu romantic drama kicked off 2026 on January 5th with a proposition that bets on something genuinely scarce in streaming, characters who feel things for real, relationships that build slowly, and writing that isn't afraid to take its time. The series follows a group of young adults who reconnect at a point in their lives when everything seems to be on pause, the plans that didn't work out, the people they let go, the versions of themselves they still haven't finished defining. What sets Spring Fever apart from the rest of the romantic dramas in the catalog is its tone. This isn't a conventional love story, but an exploration of what it means to want someone when you still don't really know who you are yourself. Hulu bet on it as its opening of the year, and that's not a coincidence. The platform needed something that arrived with warmth and with characters the audience would actually want to follow week after week. For those looking for something that doesn't demand action or mysteries to solve, but simply a well-told story about real people trying to connect, this is the quietest and most honest bet of the opening season. Number 14, The Handmaid's Tale, Season 6 Final. In Gilead, women don't have names. They have functions. June Osborne, played by Elizabeth Moss, has spent 5 seasons resisting a system that has turned everything, the body, motherhood, identity, into a tool of control. Based on Margaret Atwood's novel, the series that turned Hulu into a global reference platform arrives in 2026 at its final season, and with it, the closing of one of the most tense and politically charged narrative arcs in all of streaming television. 19 Emmys across its history, including Outstanding Drama Series in its first season, are the shortest possible summary of what this production means to the platform. The 6th and final season carries the pressure of closing a story that has spent nearly a decade building layers upon layers of oppression, resistance, and survival. Elizabeth Moss not only stars, but also directs and produces a level of involvement that guarantees the ending arrives with the same precision and force that defined the series from its very first episode. For those who have followed it from the beginning, this final installment is a farewell that recent television history is going to have a hard time forgetting. Number 13, American Crime Story, Season 4. Every season of American Crime Story picks a case, a scandal, a moment in which the United States was forced to look at itself in the mirror and didn't like what it found. The first season reconstructed the O.J. Simpson trial. The second explored the murder of Gianni Versace. The third centered on the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal. Ryan Murphy has spent 4 seasons using true crime as the entry point for conversations about power, racism, sex, politics, and the mechanisms a society uses to protect those who already have everything while destroying those who have nothing. It is, in that sense, one of the most consistent and most fearless anthology series in American television. Season 4 arrives with the same ingredients that made the previous ones work: exhaustive research, a first-rate cast, and Ryan Murphy's willingness to go exactly where it hurts. The franchise has accumulated 34 Emmy nominations across its history, and each new season produces the same effect. An audience that already knows the case discovers it didn't know it nearly as well as it thought. For the Latin American audience that follows American culture closely, every installment of American Crime Story is a window into the contradictions that define that society. Number 12, Tell Me Lies, Season 3. Lucy and Steven meet in college, and from the very first episode, it's clear that what exists between them isn't a love story, it's an obsession. He manipulates, she knows it and can't stop. The series, based on Carola Lovering's novel, follows this couple and their friend group across 8 years, jumping between past and present to show how a toxic relationship can reconfigure an entire life. Grace Van Patten and Jackson White built across the first 2 seasons one of the most uncomfortable and irresistible dynamics in Hulu's entire catalog, the kind of series you know is doing you harm and simply cannot stop watching. Season 3 arrives with the consequences of everything the previous 2 seasons set in motion, and with a Steven who in the present is no longer the college kid but someone who has had years to perfect exactly what he does. Tell Me Lies has an extraordinarily loyal fan base on social media, especially among the audience that grew up reading Lovering's novel, and every new episode generates immediate conversation. For those who haven't discovered it yet, the first 2 seasons are complete on Hulu and are exactly as addictive as they promise to be. Number 11. Scrubs Revival, Season 10. Sacred Heart Hospital is opening its doors again. Scrubs was for 9 seasons, one of the most beloved medical comedies in American television, a series capable of making you laugh and breaking your heart in the same episode, one that used JD's fantasies as a space to talk about friendship, loss, vocation, and the absurdity of trying to save lives inside a system designed to fail. Zach Braff as JD and Donald Faison as Turk return for this 10th season landing on Hulu on February 26th, alongside Sarah Chalke as Elliot and recurring appearances from Judy Reyes and John C. McGinley. The same Bill Lawrence who created Scrubs is also the mind behind Ted Lasso and Shrinking, which gives a very clear idea of the kind of emotional balance this comeback is going to try to hold. The revival arrives with the question that always accompanies these returns. Can a comedy from the 2000s be relevant in 2026? The answer, according to those who have seen the first episodes, is that Scrubs was never just a comedy of its time, it was a comedy about what it means to grow up, make mistakes, and keep going anyway, and that doesn't have an expiration date. For the audience that lived it the first time around, this return to Sacred Heart is one of the most emotionally charged surprises of the year on the platform. Number 10. The Beauty. Imagine a world where an infectious disease does exactly what society has always promised the right surgery, the right diet, and enough effort would do: make you irresistibly beautiful. The Beauty is Ryan Murphy's new FX series, based on the comic by Jeremy Haun and Jason A. Hurley that uses that science fiction premise to build a satirical horror about society's collective obsession with physical appearance. Janika, a woman infected by an organism that transforms its carriers into physically perfect versions of themselves, discovers that the beauty the world celebrates comes with consequences nobody is willing to say out loud. Ryan Murphy has spent decades being the most prolific and the most willing creator in American television to go to uncomfortable places, from Nip Tuck to American Horror Story, from Ratched to Monster, and The Beauty is his most direct version of something that has always run through his work: the cruelty of a culture that judges bodies and then pretends it doesn't. The full 11-episode season is available on Hulu and is already generating exactly the kind of cultural debate Murphy has been chasing for years. For those who enjoy horror with something more than a scare behind it, this is the most provocative proposition of the season. Number 10. The Beauty. Imagine a world where an infectious disease does exactly what society has always promised the right surgery, the right diet, and enough effort would do: make you irresistibly beautiful. The Beauty is Ryan Murphy's new FX series, based on the comic by Jeremy Haun and Jason A. Hurley that uses that science fiction premise to build a satirical horror about society's collective obsession with physical appearance. Janika, a woman infected by an organism that transforms its carriers into physically perfect versions of themselves, discovers that the beauty the world celebrates comes with consequences nobody is willing to say out loud. Ryan Murphy has spent decades being the most prolific and the most willing creator in American television to go to uncomfortable places, from Nip Tuck to American Horror Story, from Ratched to Monster, and The Beauty is his most direct version of something that has always run through his work: the cruelty of a culture that judges bodies and then pretends it doesn't. The full 11-episode season is available on Hulu and is already generating exactly the kind of cultural debate Murphy has been chasing for years. For those who enjoy horror with something more than a scare behind it, this is the most provocative proposition of the season. Number 8. Malcolm in the Middle. Life's Still Unfair. For 7 seasons between 2000 and 2006, Malcolm in the Middle was the comedy that best understood the chaos of growing up in a completely dysfunctional family with a protagonist who broke the fourth wall to explain exactly how absurd his situation was, and a cast that made the daily disaster feel completely recognizable. 20 years after the series finale, the Wilkersons are back. Frankie Muniz returns as Malcolm, now an adult trying to raise his own daughter without repeating his family's patterns. Bryan Cranston and Jane Kaczmarek return as Hal and Lois, and the trigger for the reunion is his parents demanding Malcolm come back to celebrate their 40th anniversary, something he has spent more than a decade avoiding. The revival arrives in 4 episodes on April 10th on Hulu and the Disney Plus bundle. The absence of Eric Purse Sullivan, who played Dewey and decided not to return to acting, is the only notable gap in a reunion that for an entire generation is one of the most anticipated comebacks of the year. There is something genuinely exciting about watching this family return to the same level of productive chaos that made them unforgettable, and about seeing Bryan Cranston and Frankie Muniz share the screen again for the first time in 2 decades. Number 7. Dying for Sex. Molly receives a diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer. Her response isn't to retreat and wait, it's to decide that if she has time left, she's going to use it to explore intimacy and desire in ways she never allowed herself before. Based on the podcast of the same name, Dying for Sex is an FX series starring Michelle Williams that uses humor and brutal honesty to talk about mortality, autonomy, and what it means to reclaim your own body when you've been told it's running out of time. The tone recalls Fleabag in its willingness to laugh at what hurts without letting that laughter take the weight out of anything. Williams, who has spent decades as one of Hollywood's most respected actresses with 4 Oscar nominations to her name, delivers here a performance that early critics are already placing among the best work of her television career. Dying for Sex has 8 episodes available on Hulu, and since its premiere, it has generated exactly the kind of conversation that the best FX series always provoke. People watch it, they need to talk about it, and they recommend it with an urgency that very few pieces of fiction manage to create. For those who haven't discovered it yet, now is the moment. Number 6. The Testaments. 15 years after the events of The Handmaid's Tale, Gilead is still standing, but something is changing from within. Aunt Lydia, the character who for 6 seasons represented women's complicity in their own oppression, is keeping a secret. 2 young women, on opposite sides of the border between Gilead and the free world, are pieces of a plan that could finally bring the regime down from the inside. The Testaments is the adaptation of Margaret Atwood's Booker Prize-winning novel, the direct sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, arriving on Hulu on April 8th as a standalone series, with a new cast led by Chase Infinity. The decision to tell this story as a separate series, running in parallel to the final season of The Handmaid's Tale, is deliberate. The Testaments works on its own, without needing to have seen the 6 previous seasons, though for those who have, every scene carries the weight of everything they already know. Hulu positioned this project as one of its major events of the year. 2 series from the same universe closing simultaneously is a strategy no other platform has available right now. For fans of Atwood's universe, 2026 is the year Gilead finally ends. Number 5. Alien, Earth, Season 2. The year is 2120. Corporations rule. Androids have feelings. And something has just crash-landed on Earth. Alien, Earth is the series created by Noah Hawley, the same mind behind Fargo and Legion that brings the Alien franchise back to its origin. The terror of coming face-to-face with something that evolution designed exclusively to kill. Sydney Chandler stars in a first season that arrived on Hulu in August of 2025 as the most anticipated FX premiere in years, with Ridley Scott and Noah Hawley as executive producers, and a visual scale that very few television projects have ever allowed themselves. Season 2 is already confirmed for 2026, arriving with the world of the first season completely transformed by what the xenomorphs left behind. The Alien franchise has a global fan base that in Latin America is particularly strong generations, who grew up with the films and received this series as the expansion the universe deserved. Hawley has been given the freedom to tell 2 complete seasons of Alien, Earth before returning to Fargo, and that creative freedom shows in every production decision. Season 2 promises to push further than the first, in everything the first already pushed to its limit. Number 4. Paradise, Season 2. After a disaster that erased the world as we knew it, 10,000 people live in Paradise, an underground city built to preserve what remained of America. Xavier Collins is the Secret Service agent assigned to protect former President Bradford. When Bradford turns up dead, all eyes point to Collins. What follows is an investigation that isn't just looking for the killer, it's trying to understand what Paradise actually is, who built this place, and what truths about the old world nobody wants to see come to light. Dan Fogelman, the creator of This Is Us, and Sterling K. Brown lead a first season that became the biggest surprise Hulu had at the start of 2026. Season 2 arrives on February 23rd with new survivors, flashbacks to the past, and the answers the first season deliberately left unresolved. The format recalls Lost in its architecture of layered mystery upon mystery, but with the emotional weight and non-linear storytelling that made Fogelman famous through This Is Us. Hulu is running it as its flagship series of the moment, and the Season 2 numbers confirm that the first season's success wasn't an accident, it was the beginning of something with a great deal more left to reveal. Number 3. Only Murders in the Building, Season 6. Charles, Oliver, and Mabel are 3 neighbors on the Upper West Side of New York who don't have much in common except a shared obsession with true crime podcasts and the bad luck of living in a building where murders occur with a regularity that would send any sensible person packing. Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez have spent 5 seasons building one of the most endearing and funniest trios in streaming television, in a series that uses the classic mystery as an excuse to talk about loneliness, aging, unlikely friendship, and what it means to find your place in the world when you thought you'd already lost it. Season 5 wrapped in October of 2025 with a cliffhanger that sends the gang to London for the 6th installment, a change of scenery the series uses to bring new faces into the mystery. Christoph Waltz and Renee Zellweger join the cast of a season that promises everything the previous ones delivered and then some. Only Murders in the Building is, at this point, the most consistent comedy series in Hulu's entire catalog, the one that arrives every fall with the same quality and the same ability to surprise you season after season without ever showing the effort. Number 2. Shogun, Season 2. After becoming one of the biggest television phenomena of recent years, Shogun returns with a second season that promises to expand even further its story of power, war, and strategy in feudal Japan. The first season, based on the novel by James Clavell, was a massive success for FX and Hulu, winning multiple Emmy Awards and being considered by many critics as one of the best series of the decade. The story follows the political rise of Lord Toranaga, played by Hiroyuki Sanada, as different clans fight for control of the country during a time when every decision can mean life or death. With a massive production, epic battles, and a narrative filled with political intrigue, the second season arrives as one of Hulu's most ambitious projects for the coming years. If the first season already left a huge mark on modern television, the continuation promises to take that scale even further. Number 1. The Bear, Season 5 Final. Some series change what you expect from television. The Bear is one of them. From the very first episode of its first season, 18 minutes filmed in a single take with the energy of a real kitchen on the verge of collapse, it was clear this was not a conventional comedy, not even a conventional drama. It was something of its own, without any pre-existing category that fully fit it. Jeremy Allen White, Ayo Edebiri, Ebon Moss, Bachrach, Liza Colon, Zayas, and the rest of the team built across 4 seasons characters so real and so complex that watching the 5th installment arrives with the same mix of anticipation and grief you feel when you know something you love is about to end. 21 Emmys. The most decorated comedy series in the history of FX. A cultural impact in the United States that reaches far beyond the television world. The Bear changed the way people talk about restaurants, teamwork, trauma, and ambition. Season 5 and final arrives in 2026 with the kitchen in production in Chicago and all the weight of everything this series built behind it. There is no other series in Hulu's catalog this year that carries that level of history, sustained quality, and expectation. When the Bear closes its kitchen for the last time, television is going to feel that silence. That was the countdown of the 15 most important Hulu series of 2026. From comedies returning after decades to the definitive finale of one of the best series in recent television history. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. There's a lot more content on the way, and we'll see you in the next video.